Hey, Kyler here. Our aim for this show is to throw a dart right in the bullseye of what it looks like to leverage every opportunity that life throws at us. I hope you find value in today's episode. Hey everyone, my name is Kyler Offenbacker, joined with my brother Cord Offenbacker at the Leverage Life Show. And today we are talking about disability insurance. And as a reminder, our core mission is to leverage every opportunity that life throws at us.
Speaking of disability insurance, Kyler, let me give you a pop quiz. Do you remember Doctor Strange, that movie in the Avengers series, in that whole Marvel universe, played by Benedict Cumberbatch? Do you remember, here's your pop quiz, what his original profession was before he became Doctor Strange?
Absolutely. I'm a huge Marvel nerd. He was a neurosurgeon.
He exactly was a neurosurgeon, not just any doctor, a neurosurgeon specifically. You can say he was an expert in his craft, like a true artisan type, like top of the top, best of the best. But he suffered serious nerve damage in a high speed car crash. I mean, you might remember the scene. It was kind of like that intense buildup. And then, oh, what do you do after this? Well, he doesn't have disability income insurance, so he actually had to resort to other avenues, like becoming some weird sorcerer, and ultimately becoming Avenger and saving the world. I don't know. So I guess if you don't have disability insurance, that can be your route. You can figure out another skill and become a sorcerer. um, so I tell you the funny story, of course, because it makes me think of one of the most underrated, unprotected things in our life, and it's our hands. It could be our mind, it could be a leg, even. How much do our hands play a vital role, even for like a surgeon, in the work that you do in your current profession? I'm thinking of the physicians, I'm thinking of the skilled tradesman, the business owner who works with their mind or their eyes or something. And there's a huge disability risk associated with every specific profession. So this episode isn't really about, the idea of life insurance, of course, is protecting you if you die and filling the gaps. But disability insurance is more under that accidents and health, and it protects you if you get, if you still live, but you get disabled and you're not able to work at your same capacity. You actually need to maybe replace your income. So we're breaking down disability insurance today, and I think it's one of the most overlooked tools in maybe a portfolio or in personal finance. So Kyler, why don't you share with us more about what disability insurance is and how it works?
Yeah, those are really good thoughts when it comes to doctors, business owners. That example of Doctor Strange is actually very, very, it's a great example because a lot of surgeons have this stuff in place because they have to use their hands and they have to be able to do things that are very specific to the job. If they can't do that, then their income is going to be drastically different. And so, yeah, disability insurance, it replaces a portion of your income. If you can't work due to an illness or an injury like that, this is what this stuff does. It really is as simple as that. And if something were to happen, like you said, with your hands or your mind, whatever that is, and it impacts your ability to do that work, disability insurance will come in and will replace your income via the insurance. And there's really if you look at two different types of disability, you've got short-term and long-term disability. If you work anywhere specifically, you've probably, looked at something like this when it comes to like signing up for benefits. You're going to sign up for your health insurance. There's always a few other things you can kind of tag along to it. There's short term, there's long term disability. And short term, it's really going to be for the short term, 3 to 6 months typically. And when you get into long term type of disability coverage, that's going to be for the long term, of course, up to like 5, 10 plus years up to retirement age. But regardless of if it's short term or long term, what it's going to do is going to replace a portion of your income. And most often that portion is going to be anywhere from 50 to 70%. It really just depends on how much coverage you need. And there are a few types of terms that are important to note when it comes to disability insurance, we've got something what's called an elimination period. Basically, there's going to be a amount of time that you have to wait before benefits will essentially kick in, and it just kind of depends on what that is, or excuse me, elimination period. The benefit period, of course, like how long it's actually going to be the benefit, and whether it's your own occupation or any occupation, those types of definitions are important to understand because of the type of policy you're going to get. If it is your own occupation, that is going to be very specific and probably what, a doctor is going to want because that's going to be for their specific occupation versus any occupation. It could be anything. And anyways, it goes back to the point being of like, hey, you've got to look at your specific circumstance and what is going to be specifically unique and ideal for you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm thinking about one thing you said, Kyler. It replaces a portion of your income, and maybe that's confusing to some people. Why can't it? If I get disabled, why can't I just get 100% of my income back? And that's something that maybe needs to be clarified. So why would someone who gets maybe a standalone disability insurance policy? Because I know you can get it with a group if that's something in your group plan, or a lot of people, like a surgeon, might get it individually because they want that coverage. Why would it not replace 100%?
Yeah, there's a few specific reasons. One top of mind, it's actually you just need less money when you're disabled or you're just not working. You've got different things to consider, like you're commuting to work. You've got maybe like your work clothes. You have to update that regularly, like eating out, like childcare, different business expenses, retirement contributions. Like some of those things may not be eh, as I don't want to say important, but like it's not going to be taken out like right now because you're not going to be working as much. Like you don't have to have as much income to maintain your level of status, like what you're doing and be able to live on your income. And so, you have less money, and so you're 60 to 70%, it's going to be kind of, you can almost think of that like after your taxes, like, you're going to have taxes taken out. You're going to have, just not as many as expenses. So you just don't need as much specifically. Really another one too, specifically, and people will call this different things, but a lot of insurance people or like insurance carriers, it's preventing a moral hazard. And basically what I mean by that is you don't want somebody making more money when they're not working compared to, you know what I mean? Like they don't need to be making more money compared to when they're working. And so if a policy replaces 100% of their income, there's less incentive to recover. There's less incentive to get back to working. And so like claims will last longer, costs will explode. There's a lot of things that can come into that. But really those are really some two big reasons. And then of course, like the third one, I kind of mentioned this about like taxes. I mean, it's gonna be your gross income is going to be X amount, but after taxes, your net take home is going to be whatever, like 60, 70% of that, depending, of course, what your occupation is. But that needs to be a factor as well. And so they're not going to be able to give you more than what you would be making if you were working. So those are just a few things that will typically come up when it comes to the why you're not going to be making 100% of what you were before. If you're serious about making smart decisions with your money and protecting the people who matter most, this is where clarity starts. The reality is, most people don't lack options, they lack clear strategy that actually fits their life. At the Leverage Life Show, we help individuals and families understand what makes sense for your situation, whether that's life insurance, final expense planning, or more advanced strategies like bank premium financing. If you want to take the next step with confidence, text SHOW to 479-396-3528. We'll help you get clear before you make a decision. Now let's get back to the show.
So you mean to tell me I would actually spend less money if I didn't commute to work and get my iced matcha latte on the way or something?
Yeah, yeah, definitely where you would. Yeah, everybody would save money if you didn't, spend $12 on a coffee.
That's fair. That's fair. And I think something, I hear you saying too is, that end goal, that huge necessary thing of actually being able to do the job you want and the job you love. Because if you're in your peak earning years, I would hope that, yeah, of course, there's hard parts about every job, but I would hope that you enjoy going to work and that you get some sense of fulfillment out of the work that you produce and you create. So, yeah, one of those end goals of disability insurance is to get you back to that and get you back to your peak earning opportunities and get back to the work that you originally started with and can finish out your career with as well. So I think it makes a ton of sense. And it might be good now to hyper focus on who really needs this, maybe what type of occupations or the type of person would benefit from this especially. So of course the first ones that come to mind are the people like a Doctor Strange. They are a physician, maybe a high income surgeon, or they own their own practice, or even just an MD doctor, a family practice, someone who's taking care of families. They're bringing in good money, but especially for the surgeon, these are your money makers, your hands. So that makes me think of the fact that you are the greatest asset that actually needs the most protection. Or say you're a business owner who is so skilled at the operations and your mind just thinks in such unique ways that it's really hard to quantify that. Or a skilled trader that's just a high income earner, someone who has that high income capacity, but they are so reliant on maybe those naturally gifted things that they have, like their hands or the way they think, that needs to be taken care of. So those are just a few occupations that come to mind. Of course, that's not a comprehensive list, but maybe you're hearing that and thinking, oh, wait, I'm actually not insuring my best asset, which is me. You insure your house, you insure your car, we insure the things we deem necessary to live a functional daily life. But do we insure the thing that actually creates the wealth? Do we insure the hands? Do we insure um, if a disability takes place, what actually makes us the wealth, what creates the wealth? So here's that mindset shift before we get into some practical scenarios and maybe some examples that I want you to share, Kyler. Um, mindset shift is something like this. Say life insurance, it protects your family if you die. Disability insurance protects your family if you live, but you can't work.
It's a good thought. Yeah, it's a good way to put it for sure. Yeah. And, you just mentioned a couple scenarios. And so, I mean, it there's just like with anything we've talked about, life insurance, final expense, you've got really two different types of people. And so one scenario we'll talk about is Tony, right? Tony is he's invincible. That's what he thinks, right? He doesn't need coverage. He's a seasoned contractor. He owns a roofing company. Lo and behold, he was at a job site and got twisted up, on a ladder, getting back up on the roof, fell, hurt his back, and he can't work for 8 months. So he's basically out of work. I mean, he's maybe has some people working for him, but he himself cannot do the thing that he needs to do in order to make money. So let's say he has an emergency fund for 6 months. Okay, he's drained that in 4. Okay, emergency funds are not meant to be long-term things, and you should be smart and have an emergency fund, of course. But at the same time, it's not meant to be long-lasting. And so, what happened? Of course, he's wrecked that emergency fund. He's completely drained it. What happens after that? Marriage maybe gets a little bit distressed. Can't afford, the lifestyle that he once had. He can't take his family out to dinner. And yes, he survived, but how are his finances? Yeah, those are some really devastating things in his peak years of earning, and especially as a business owner. And so that's just one scenario. And then we've got, of course, the other side of the scenario, the other side of the coin here is somebody that is a little bit more of a forward thinker. They're going to have some structured protection in place. And let's call her Sarah, right? Like, let's say she's a marketing executive and she all of a sudden gets hit with a diagnosis of an autoimmune illness. Okay, that's a very normal thing that can happen with a lot of people in the world, right? Like they're going to have something that comes up and it's not going to allow them to continue on with maybe the work that they were originally doing. And so what she had done is she purchased a long-term disability policy. And now that's going to be replacing 60% of her income. And her bills are paid. She's able to basically continue on without the financial stress that Tony did have. And because of that, now she's, even had the time to be able to go do other things, such as, I say other things like if she had the time to like stay at home, she wrote a book about her experiences. And so now she had the opportunity that she basically leveraged to find other sources of income that she may or may not have other been able to do. And so we've got the two scenarios, like I mentioned, somebody that is a planner and somebody that thinks that they're invincible. And when something does happen, it could completely wreck a lot of what they've got going on in their life.
I love that example of Sarah too, of just it enabled her to get back on her feet and she leveraged that opportunity. Life threw at her, although it wasn't something she expected, and she made the most out of it. And now she created more wealth for her family and she had the financial stability to be able to do it. And as always, as we close out, we want to give some very practical, measurable key objectives. So here's say an audit for you personally and for all of us. If the income stopped tomorrow, say due to a disability, how long could you and your family survive? Is it 1 month? Is it 3 months? Is it 6 months? Well, what about longer than that? Because sometimes a disability takes you out longer than 6 months. That example of Tony, it took him out 8 months with that back injury. And if the answer there that comes to mind gives a sense of uneasiness or uncomfort, maybe the family could really benefit, and you personally, from some disability coverage and some income disability, a disability insurance policy, because you got to protect the engine, you got to protect the vehicle that drives the wealth. Because leverage without any protection, doing what you do best, doing what you love without any protection, there's just a ton of risk there. And you got to think about, would that be helpful for your family?
Mm, absolutely. Actually, I'm going to say that again, Cord. That or kind of with what you just said. Actually, I'm gonna have you re-say that. Say that again. That last part was a leverage without protection is just risk. Is that what you said? Say that one more time. That's a really important thing.
That's it. Leverage, what you're doing best, the way you make your money, what you love. If it's just leverage without any protection, it's just risk. That's all it is.
Yeah, that's solid. That's a really solid point. So, guys, well, I hope you have enjoyed this episode of the Leverage Life Show. If you have found value with this show, then give us a like, subscribe, share it with somebody that you feel like would be beneficial to listen to some of this stuff. And we hope that this is valuable and that you just kind of get some things, turn in your mind. And as always, go out and leverage every opportunity that life throws at you. We'll see you next time.